Get started. Hey gang, thank you so much for being here today. Really appreciate, Ryan, your time, Vicky, Kyle, and Bob, and Karen when she joins us as well. Everybody being willing to, come from contributions, share knowledge, and take this time to grow together. That's really what this is about. So let's, without any more delay, let's get started. We're going to talk today about, how we can keep our listings hot, how we can manage some seller expectations. There's been a bit of a trend. I mean, it's not significant, but we're starting to see days on market increase a little bit on average across the board. So we just kind of want to get ahead of this. And if we don't need this information, amazing. If we do, we have it, right? Awesome.
Yep.
So if you want to, start with Kyle, just tell us, your world, what market are you in, and whatever you want to tell us about you.
Oh, okay. Well, we operate the Flamborough, Waterdown, Dundas, any Hamilton, Burlington area is where we service, of course. Mostly Flamborough, Dundas, Waterdown are sort of our key areas of focus. And I don't know, I've been selling houses for sort of my 13 years now. So chipping away and having fun.
In the Flamborough kind of Dundas area, what are you seeing as a trend in days on market right now?
Oh, well, it's definitely up for sure. But I think, as we move towards the warmer months, I think we're going to see it go back to where it was, or, maybe slightly higher, not as high as it is now, but it's definitely higher than it is normally. But I think, it's to be expected. And I don't think it's the worst thing in the world either, to be honest with you.
A little bit of time to market it, pick up some buyers.
Well, yeah, exactly. Yeah, it gives us an opportunity to sort of pick up additional business and, market ourselves, and, could be worse.
Could be. And okay, Bob, tell us, you're in a similar market. What are you noticing as a trend in days on market right now? The hamster stopped. Bob, can you hear me?
Yeah, I'm sorry. You just cut out there for a second. Sorry.
So what are you seeing as a trend in your market for days on market right now? Okay, we're going to jump to Tracy on that one. Tracy, you're working in Oakville these days, right?
Yeah, Oakville, Mississauga, West Toronto.
Yeah. So what are you seeing in your primary market as a trend?
We're seeing some competitions if the property is listed correctly. So the closer you are to market value on a property right now, we're basically sitting at end of February, beginning of March numbers. Then if you've got something in there, it's going very quickly.
Yeah. Okay. We're gonna talk a little bit.
And East and West is a little bit better than the core, that's a flip from what it normally is. Usually downtown Toronto is doing really well, but this time East and West is doing better.
Okay. Interesting trend, isn't it? Okay. Karen, you are with us now. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you.
Glad to see you. So we're just quickly going over, what area you serve and what you're seeing as a trend right now in days on market.
Depending on the price point, the trend right now, days on market below $1 million, is running anywhere from a day to 30 days max.
Yeah.
And I service Burlington, Oakville, and northern north. So
yeah, a little more rural sometimes as well, right? And Ryan, what about you? What are you seeing as a current trend in your days on market?
Yeah, I mean, so we're mostly Burlington, a little bit of Oakville and Hamilton on either side, and anything freehold in Burlington that's priced right is moving quick. Similar to Karen, less than a week, multiple offers. I think as you get more so on the outskirts, or if there's any commercial listings, or is a different story now. Totally different market, but generally, low inventory still. So.
Yeah, absolutely. Low inventory helps things.
Yeah.
So I want this to be really casual, very conversational. So any of our viewers, if you guys have questions, feel free to unmute yourself and ask a question, or type it in the chat box at any point as well. I meant to say that. But let's start, we talked a little bit about pricing and houses that are priced properly, they're moving. So how are you pricing homes right now? Ryan, we're on you, so let's stick with you. Are you pricing conservatively or?
Pricing them accurately, right? I think always, depending on the seller's situation, of course, but always aiming to price it, based on whatever our seller's goals are for a strategy for them. So it's got to be priced right still to move. And I think, it's more so getting more interesting on how we're vetting who the buyers are in terms of their financing and stuff as well. So it's not that you necessarily always want to work with any offer now. So depends on that's sort of impacting things as well. And I think that's going to be the big story the next 6 months to a year or so.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Anybody else feel free to chime in from our panel. How are you pricing right now?
We just finished pricing for 3 different houses that we're hoping are going to come on the market. So each house basically has a range. So I never tell a client that, okay, it's exactly, $878,022. You can't do that. So there is a range. What's our top end and what's our lower end range? And the closer you are to the lower end, because there's hesitation in the market, because people are, it's not that the market's hesitated, the people still aren't sure. There's still a lot of uncertainty in everything else other than real estate. And so pricing it to the more approachable side of the range in order to stop them from just being fence sitters. So you've got to, I'm not saying, radically underlist it, because, people are kind of ticked off about that. So in the range, on the more approachable side, that, because you need to be able to do that to get people off the fence.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
They're just going to sit and stall.
I really like
Which also depends on the motivation.
Bob, it depends on the motivation. Yeah, absolutely.
Yep.
That's a great point. Karen, what were you going to say?
I really like Tracy's.
Has to go. They've already purchased.
Sorry, say again, Bob?
Say again, Karen.
I was just going to say, it depends on the motivation. If the client has already purchased or something of that nature, they've got to go. And so it may be in the best interest of the client to have a lower number just to get multiple.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. You've always got to take that into consideration. Bob's just got a pinch of a lag on his internet, so he wasn't trying to interrupt you. I'm certain of that.
I really like.
That's for swearing.
Kyle, fire your father, would you?
He already has.
Anyway, I really like Tracy's word approachable, because that definitely came out in an evaluation that I did yesterday, and it's over the 1.5 mark. It's 178 house, and it, you have to be fully aware that your clients definitely want that higher mark, especially over the $1 million mark, and they want to price it as per that house and that house and that house. And of course, their house is always the best when it comes to $1.5 million and over. But approachable is a really nice word, because you can say to them, no one will be approaching your house if you overprice it, because this is not the time to do that. And we don't know what the market is going to do in a year from now or 6 months from now. So we have to forewarn them of that, and we have to sit there at the table and make sure that that we are teaching them and giving them that knowledge that they may be going down in price as far as a reduction.
Mm-hmm.
Also, using the word approachable, you have to take into consideration, even when you're talking to your client, who may be the seller, that this is a transaction that involves 2 sets of people. And so you can put up a stop sign, or you can put up an approachable sign, like welcome. So in a market where everybody, if you would look at it as traffic lights, you're going to have 1 or 2 people that are racing through the intersection. Most of them are sitting there on yellow going, who goes first? Who goes first? So you might as well have that conversation with your seller about being approachable, because of the tension that's in just the general society at the moment, that there is a range and that you're working to get them the highest price you can within that range. But it's critical in order to manage the seller's expectations as you continue with this listing, that it is in fact a two-person transaction. There are buyers, there are sellers. Definition of market value, what they both come to agreement in. There is no dictating here. Even in a seller's market, I don't think of it as one dictating to the other. And if you can keep their mindset open to the fact that the market changes and could change very rapidly on us. We get a hot spot and they shut us down. You need to be approachable at this particular moment. We'll pull out all the guns for everything else that we do in order to get you the upper end of that range. But, you know, list price is a marketing tool. It's not an indication of value. We all know that.
Amen. Well said. So speaking of, Tracy, this is the most beautiful segue. Thank you for that. Gosh, wow, it's like we planned it. How are you keeping your sellers informed, and what are you informing them about as you have your listing on the market? What are you doing? How are you keeping in touch with them, and with what information? So let's start with, let's go to Kyle on that one.
Yeah, for me, it's voice to voice, I think, is really key for me anyway. Context and things can get lost in an email or in a text format, I find. So if some of the feedback isn't overly positive, or if the showings activities lagged, I just think they need to hear from me. They need to hear my voice. They need to hear that I'm calm and everything's cool. You know, just ride the wave. Let's not get too emotional about things. Just relax a little bit and see where things go. I find that's usually the best approach with our clients, or my clients anyway, because they can hear me, they can understand me, and usually the conversations are very free flowing, and there's some honesty, and sometimes they're hard conversations, but generally speaking, they're received really well.
Mm-hmm. And Ryan, you mentioned to me when we were first talking about doing this panel that you've got a system in place for keeping your sellers informed. Do you want to tell us a bit about that?
Yeah, sure. I think, you know, one thing that's super helpful is to, you know, because all sellers are, you know, generally impatient. It can be obviously a stressful time. I know anytime I've moved, even before I was an agent, like I was, you know, it's a stressful time on the agent. So, you know, good to maybe give some context and like the cumulative, all the things that you're doing, like not just the feedback from the past couple of days. So we like to, you know, keep it all together and send it as a weekly report to our seller clients, so that they know everything that's happening behind the scenes, so that and it's also going to head off them always asking you nonstop about what's happening. So then they get a better sense of all the other things that are happening, even online traffic. So there's a lot of things that they may not have visibility to, where you can, and then you've got some data to be able to go back to them and say, hey, look, you know, I know we've had whatever, maybe there's 7 showings through during COVID, and it seems like a low amount of traffic, but you know, there's been 22,000 people who have viewed your home online. So these are, you know, people that are choosing whether or not they want to come and walk through the door based on your price point as well. So, so that's part of it.
That's awesome.
We do
I
that
think that was a key part that Ryan had mentioned about being there first. You get to them before they get to you. And I think that's always the best way to be. You're being proactive about it, even though it's not a pleasant conversation at times, but you're ahead of their call.
Mm-hmm.
We do that as well on my team. So we do a weekly report, and we've templated it out. It goes out on Tuesdays. And I don't have to argue with people to get a price reduction. They call me and go, Trace, we got to make an adjustment. Look at that chart. Just like, awesome. So if you give them, and we run stats, and we try and keep stats for different price ranges as to, you know, how many showings does it take before it triggers an offer and things like that, and some ballpark information for them, and different things that have happened within the market and what's the feedback. And so when they get the report, it's been explained to them in great detail well ahead of time. So they don't even call me and go, how'd the open house go? Or how'd this go? We do this report so that they can understand it, and they don't call us about it. And if they do, I go, remember, that's coming in the report on Tuesday. We're not gonna like call you after every showing. Because the percentage of people that were actually, you know, A-level buyers, B-level buyers, we've gone through that all with them, so that when they get the report on Tuesday, they fully understand the report. We don't give it to them on Tuesday and then say, hey, try and figure this out. What does this all mean? And they like that kind of information given to them ahead of time as to how to understand the report, so that when they do get it, they feel empowered that they can read it, they understand the situation as what's going on with their house. And then if they see that it's starting to fall off, and in the meantime, they've seen that we've actually stepped up in all these other areas, they know that it's time for a price adjustment. They call and they go, Trace, I think it's time we reduce the price. I go, I think you're right. Let's go.
That's way more fun than you making that call.
Yeah, like I'm not calling to be the bad guy, and none of this is a big secret.
Yeah.
So just be really straightforward and honest with your people, and set them up for success from the beginning. Like, be respectful and let them know what's going on.
Karen, anything to add to this about keeping your sellers informed and how you are doing that with your team?
Our team does the same as Tracy's. We have a report that goes out every Friday, and they are very aware that this report is coming, and they know how to read it. They know how to, and they do the same thing. They usually come to me on a phone call saying, Karen, I think it's time we should reduce, or what's our next step? How do we get around this? However, in this COVID, I've got to tell you that I've had some very anxious sellers, and these anxious sellers are asking for feedback like within hours.
Yeah.
And so how we handle that is I love texting, and I text the agent that showed it, and I say, can you give me a quick synopsis of what your feedback is so that I can get back to my seller as soon as possible. And I got to tell you, I have the worst ones I deal with are the ones from Toronto that show my houses. Isn't that funny, Tracy?
Yep, it's brutal.
It's totally brutal, and I find it so, sorry, I'm not gonna go off on a tangent, but I find it very disrespectful in regard to not getting back to us in regard to feedback, especially with this COVID, because they've set up the house, they've sanitized the house, they've left the house, the house is there for them, and they don't get back to us in regard to feedback. It slays me. So whatever you do, guys, get back to your, when you show a house, get back to the agent with feedback as soon as possible, because you have some anxious, very anxious sellers out there. So, but we do the same thing. And I chat, I like to talk to my people like Kyle does. I talk to my people once a week. And I speak to them about what's going on in the marketplace and situations like that.
Awesome. So, okay, time out to our panelists. Panelists, plug your ears. This is for everybody else now. I talked this morning on my live about how, if you're a newer agent or if you're not a newer agent, it doesn't matter. Look to people who are where you want to be and look at what they're doing and then do those things. So one of the things that I just heard so much so far, just from that one question, is that have a system in place to give information to your sellers. So it doesn't have to be a complicated report. I'm sure if you reached out to Karen or Tracy or any of our panelists to see one of theirs, they'd be happy to show it to you. Just have a system in place for that so that it doesn't fall on your shoulders to remember to do it. It's something that just happens in your business. So time on, back into the game here.
One other thing is that when somebody shows my listing, I give them, I give feedback. If I go and show somebody else's listing, I give feedback, regardless of what it is. You must take the time to have professional courtesy with the other professionals that you work for. If you can't have professional courtesy and you're all that in a bag of cookies and you can't be bothered to give feedback, please leave the business. Seriously. I'm so tired of people. It's like, I'm too busy for that. It's like, well, you sold 3 things last year, so you're not that busy, honey.
It goes well for Keller Williams also. Being a Keller agent, it just shows well for Keller Williams, and the people that are not giving us feedback are from these small companies like Zolo, Home Life, all these guys, they're
Karen, come on.
so as far as Keller Williams is concerned, I think that we have a very, very good professional background, and we're trained that way.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and when I get feedback, I actually say, thank you for your professionalism. And they go, wow, I've never been thanked for feedback. I go, are you kidding me? Thank you so much. It's nice to work with another professional.
Yeah.
Bob, what were you going to say?
Yeah, I think historically you'll find that it's the busy agents that give you the feedback,
Yeah.
Mhm.
and the ones that go or sell to, and they've got all day.
Bob, we need to get you a Wi-Fi booster. Kyle, get on.
There's a few other things
Yeah.
too.
We lost you for a minute there, Bob. I think what he was saying was that it's the very active agents who take that minute to send the
We're
feedback.
back in and out. Sorry.
Oh, there you are.
Yeah, the full-time professional agents, the busiest ones out there, are the ones that always return the feedback for the most.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and you
Like
have to prep
Tracy
your
was saying,
clients
2 or
about
3
that as
homes
well.
a year. Don't ever.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So the moral of that story is, to everybody listening, give the feedback. It just takes a quick second to send a text message, doesn't it? And it's great for your reputation and a great way to build relationships with other realtors.
And also prep your clients.
Mhm.
So I've told clients ahead of time, you guys all expect that if I ask for feedback, I'm going to get it. I have to let you know that there's a lot of agents that just, okay, so they've decided to do real estate and they've just decided, like, to get them to give me feedback is very difficult. So I always explain to them, the really professional realtors give me the feedback, and that's the feedback that we want. But it's approximately 40%, if I'm lucky, will give us feedback. We will call and harass them 3 and 4 times to get it. And I said, I'm still going to end up with like 40%. And they go, that's not very professional in your industry. I go, yeah, unfortunately, it is what it is.
Okay, so we've got a couple questions in the chat box here. Trisha is asking is anybody willing to share their report that they send out? Just like a copy that you sent out in the past.
Sure. Basically, what you're going to do is, what are the questions that your seller is asking you about when you have a listing? So they're going to say, they're going to want to know, how many views has their listing got? You can pull that right off realtor.ca. You want to tell them how many days, remind them how many days they've been on market. And you want to give them a section about the feedback and how many showings you had. So you can start with that. And then what I want you to do is actually record what your clients are asking you, and then start incorporating that into your report.
Absolutely. It's a living thing. Right? It can always evolve.
Living thing.
So Tracy, if you would email me a copy, I'll get it out to everybody who's in our session today. If you would do that, that'd be awesome. Okay. All right. So we're going to get you an example of that. Thank you guys for that's a very illustrious conversation about keeping your sellers informed. I love it. So what are you doing? We've talked a little bit about keeping your sellers informed as the days go by. What are you doing from the inside out to market your listing a little bit differently as the days go on? Or how are you refreshing it? What are you doing to keep it looking fresh and alive? So let's start with, let's go to Ryan on that. We haven't heard from him.
Sure. I mean, in terms of keeping things fresh, probably, a lot of similar things that a lot of you are doing. If, changing up listing descriptions and changing up photography, there may be, photos you hadn't used in the past, or some video footage, but also like slightly different now, like in light of COVID, starting to think a little bit more about how the buyers are shifting a little bit. So, even in the way the descriptions are written, or if you're doing some online ads, maybe targeting more out towards Toronto, because, we've always had people coming from Toronto, but I've certainly noticing they're coming a lot more, and there's a lot of research that supports that as well. So people are going to be moving out into Oakville, Burlington more so now. So there's a couple of things.
Awesome. That's a great idea. I like that. Retargeting kind of whose eyes it's in front of, right?
Mm-hmm.
Kyle and Bob, anything to add to that?
Well, most of our listings are going definitely Treb, which isn't abnormal for the times. I think everybody's usually doing RAB and Treb listings, but we're definitely, all of our listings are on Treb. Targeted Facebook ads, we've also started to do a lot of that.
Through command?
No, not through command yet. We're still, it's a work in progress. But no, yeah, so we're targeting that way. And outside of that, there's really not much else in terms of marketing that we've changed or adjusted too much since COVID. just making sure that we're getting as much exposure as possible. And then, yeah, I mean, at that point, it's just read and react to the market and see, you know, what's happening with the feedback and the interest level and so forth.
Okay. Karen, let's head to you.
Well, several things. We have a very highly regarded newsletter that is from our database and from our loyal clients, and our visibility on that is fantastic. So we put our listings out that way. We do the virtual open houses every weekend. We are not being consistent about it, because I think consistency is very important. So my boys and my photographer with his gimbal go out to the open house on Sunday from 1 to 2. We have 2 coming up this weekend for 2 new listings that are coming on the market today and tomorrow. And so we constantly are doing things consistently virtually. And as Kyle said, social media has stepped up. It's been a learning process, a curve that we had to go into immediately. It was not a slow process. We had to do it immediately and learn how to do it and push forward with it. And our sellers are loving it. I keep getting calls about listings. And one of the things that I learned from the US is that the flyers are working like a dream. So we're doing a mail out a week, and that's what we're doing now, because we're targeting areas, but we're doing a mail out a week. I know it's a bit costly, but you know what? It's bringing back business to us. So we do just listed cards and just sold cards, and it's back again. And old school is back again, and people like to touch, like to go to their mailbox. They love to, and it's not, we don't do we're number 1 agent, we're number 10 agent, and we just sold. What we do is we do and everybody knows this because I've already done a panel on this a few years ago, but we do a sort of a very light picture of some sort, very comedic, and it works like a dream.
People like
We've also started that too.
Sorry.
Doing that, more flyers. Sorry, Tanley. More flyers. We're sending out way more flyers than we have in the last year and a half, or half a year or so. We stopped, and then we started that back up again with good results too. We're getting phone calls, which I never thought I would see the day.
Getting your phone to ring. I was going to say, everyone's going to the mailbox because it's an outing now. It's exciting to go to your mailbox, right? Something to do.
Yeah.
I was walked out of the super box. Claire, does that answer your question? Not really. Okay, Claire's got a question here. She says, what about marketing content specifically? So how are you shifting your content? Instead of it just listed, what are you doing for a property that's been on for a little while longer? Great question, Claire. Kyle, you want to go ahead with your flyers? What are you doing?
Not mostly. We're putting a lot more stats in our flyers than we have in the past. We usually did a lot of traditional, we've sold all these houses and, multiple offers here, multiple offers there, and so forth. But we're trying to compare the COVID era, so March to April to May, and showing sort of the just showing people that it did dip for the month of April significantly, and it seems to have jumped up again for May, and hopefully we can ride that out a little bit. So I guess we're taking the mindset of trying to take the newspaper headlines and the doom and gloom out, and sort of giving them something tangible that they can look at and see that it's not as bad as maybe is being projected out there.
Awesome. And Karen, what are you putting on your flyers?
Well, the last flyer we did was it just sold, but what we did is we put a couple of kids looking over a fence and saying, you know who your new neighbors are. And we do fun things like that. And it catches everybody's attention, and people call me and talk to me about it. So it's a good thing. Like Kyle said, and everybody I think is feeling this. We want to push a positive aspect on it, not a negative. And it's been so negative out there. I mean, the news that we get every day is negative for some reason.
Awesome, Ryan. Anything to add to that? Sorry.
Flyers. Yeah. To be honest, yeah, not doing a ton of prints now, more so just with our past database. But in terms of like shifting stuff, I think we're sort of gotten out of the first few weeks of COVID where it was, you know, definitely a lot more messaging around the safety and all the tech that we're doing and the 3D tours and everything. Now, you know, shifting more to the optimism, you know, it's summer outside. I think people are encouraged and feeling a lot better now and looking forward to that, but also, you know, not still being mindful of, you know, the forecast for what could happen in the fall into next year, which we don't know about. But there's, you know, big warnings from CMHC and stuff like that that we're not going to ignore. But, you know, all we can really report on is the data we have right now. So.
Excellent. Tracy, I didn't get to you on this one. What about you?
Yeah, our situation is a little bit different because we have a storefront on Kerr Street. So in our listing section, I've put up the information from Broker Bay as to what happened with prices over COVID. And now we've also got a TV in our meeting room that you can see from the front window at nighttime. And so we're just working on redoing the presentation for that so that if people come by when we're not here, they've got something that they can see. But I think most people wanted to know what was going on with pricing. How bad was the tank? Has it come back? How much has it come back? So that's a really common question. So we've got that. We get a lot of people looking at it at the front window. We can hear them talking from inside the office, so we know what they're talking about. They don't know we can hear them, but we can hear them. And then just trying to keep the listings updated. So sometimes it's like, did they just say what I think they just said? So ours is a little bit different. We have a farming program that we have not done any farming since the COVID stuff was happening. We were doing a lot of background stuff, but we have a really good farming program. We have a magazine that we do, and we've got our front window. So, and then we do digital stuff. So ours is kind of different.
Yeah, very cool. So question for this is, yeah, I'm gonna jump to this one because I think it's pretty important, and I want our agents to hear about this. So just in the chat box there, in case anybody else is wondering, they're using Canada Post, it sounds like, most people, for their flyers. And Claire is saying, yeah, Karen, I like your cheeky kind of, I think your funny little flyers that you're doing. We all need that levity right now. Okay, so the next question I really want to touch on, I think this is important. Other than price, to each of you, what is your most important marketing tool? Tracy, we're with you. Let's keep going.
Again, I've got a little bit of advantage. My husband's one of the top interior and architectural photographers in North America, so he's my secret weapon. So we get super high resolution magazine quality photos when we're doing our stuff, and then yeah, we don't use real estate photographers. We use real photographers.
Very cool. That's a great little back pocket trick.
Yeah, he gives me a discount. I can't afford his day rate, just so you know. And I do pay him.
That's awesome. You gotta have those expenses. Okay, Karen, let's go to you. What's your number one marketing tool outside of price?
I wanted to do research on iGuides versus Matterport. So I did the research on what was selling and what was not selling in regard to videos, stills, iGuides, and Matterport came out as number one as being the homes that are selling right now and selling for good prices quickly and efficiently. So I've turned all my listings, no matter what price point, I've turned all my listings into a Matterport photography. And I find that people are, buyers are very, very receptive to that.
Excellent.
What I would suggest about this, and knowing this from a photographer and also as an interior designer, from knowing it from this point of view, is that people are going in and letting real estate photographers shoot before that house is ready. Like, folks, don't have the bed skirts all over and shit underneath the bed. Sorry for the, or the toilet seat up and stuff. It's like, take a moment and make sure that the house is presentable before you photograph it. It'll go a long way.
Tracy, do you have a stager?
Sorry?
Do you have a stager that goes in first and foremost, and then not necessarily to rent furniture, but to give them that condensed list of what to do and how to do it?
I actually don't use stagers because they typically are just weekend people. Like they took a course on a weekend, and as an interior designer, they drive me nuts. So I use professional photography stylists. So, and it all depends on what price point that house is at. So if it's on, you know, an entry level house, I have enough of my own inventory to go and do something as an interior designer. Like I don't need a stager. It's like really weird for me to hire a stager. But I do have stylists that'll do stuff. And I have one stager that understands styling versus staging. And so on occasion, I'll bring them in just because I know that I can give them a buyer profile and they know what I mean by a buyer profile and they will style to that buyer profile.
That's another little back pocket thing you have, eh, Tracy?
Yep.
Okay, Ryan, what about you? What's the number one marketing tool you guys use other than your price?
Please unmute.
Me?
Oh, go ahead, Kyle.
Okay. Yeah, no, I'm with Karen, although I went iGuide. I just feel like it's easier to navigate for prospective buyers and so forth. I like the way it rolls a little bit better than the Matterport, but I think either one is definitely almost the norm or an expectation in the market right now, especially with, you know, the lack of showing activity and so forth. So we've definitely invested much more in photography than we had in the past. And that has been our main adjustment, I guess.
Awesome. And Ryan?
Yeah, not too much different. We've been doing 3D tours for the past couple of years, so it's helpful to have the floor plans. And of course, now everybody can see all the details. So we want to, we're continuing with that with every single listing. And, you know, so nothing to, you know, some paid ads as well are helpful because people are spending a lot more time online. So, so that's helpful.
Excellent.
One of the things that I had done a test on, and it was before we did this for COVID, and that was I had video and dollhouse style like Matterport, and then I just had photographs. You would get a really high number of views on the video and on the Matterport style because it was an iGuide that I'd used at the time. And then I ran, like I did a split A/B test and I just did photography. Way more showings on photography on it. Because you gave so much away in the video that they knew whether they were going to come or not. And at the same time, people can't fall in love with the house until they're in it.
Mm-hmm.
They need to feel that house, not just see that house. So I don't release every single picture from the photo session. So like the money shot, as they call it, and a couple of key ones. But I always leave one thing that's a beautiful surprise when they get there.
Oh, interesting tactic. Okay.
Because it's when they're in the house that they're actually going to go, I love the light, I love the windows, I love this, I love this. So I need enough to get them to the door, but people don't fall in love until they actually are in the house.
Right.
And I found that number of views and number of showings was directly affected by how much was showing in the video. So I adjusted that. I pulled back, which sounds counterintuitive, but I got more showings.
Yeah.
That's always a good
That's
thing,
good.
Tracy.
I like that.
What's that?
That's always a good thing. Okay.
The client is judging it by not how many people looked at their Matterport, by how many people actually came through their house and what did they say.
Okay, now my final question for you guys, and then if anybody from the audience has any questions, please feel free to unmute yourselves or type it into the chat box. Is there, for any of you, is there a marketing tool that's on your radar or that you've heard about or that you're curious about that you haven't executed on yet, you haven't tried in your business yet? Anybody can go ahead if there is.
Well, I haven't done any virtual open houses yet.
No.
Me neither.
Well, Claire Barrett's your girl for that, I think, or Justin's doing it. There's lots of agents doing it now. Ryan?
Yeah, I've never even tried, never done it. I mean, I should, but I just haven't. And I think that's probably the next biggest thing, you know.
Kyle, we can
Get
both
that
go
on.
and try it together.
Yeah.
6 feet apart with masks, though.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
Ryan, anything?
Don't forget to get that gimbal because that's imperative.
Okay.
Karen, is there anything that's on your radar that you haven't tested out yet or tried in your business from a marketing perspective?
Only because I have a young team and we're always hashing things out and looking at things. We've tried. I think we've tried most of it, but I'm up for any ideas.
Awesome. If I hear of anything, I'll let you know. That's why I asked this question, because maybe there's somebody that's got something that we could all learn about. Ryan,
We do most of our stuff on Facebook advertising, and I always have done. We're tweaking and changing some of that, but I've been a Facebook advertiser based on a buyer profile for a very long time. We're just going through another tweak session on it, and that's very, very helpful. Like, I can tell who's going to show up at my open house by the ads I've put up.
that's amazing. Great
Yeah.
information. And Ryan, is there anything on you and Vicky's radar that you haven't tested out yet or tried?
Nothing to, I mean, to be honest, we did virtual open houses for a little while, finding that was not worth us to keep doing them. It's almost better to get more serious people to call in, and then we can, vet them over the phone and have them go through the 3D tour. And then there's a bit more of a personal connection to take them through the home personally anyways, which may be a better chance of closing them. But yeah, I mean, other just similar to Tracy, have been using online ads for a while. So that's not really anything too new, and can't think of anything else offhand.
I think it's really important to remember that tech is only a tool.
Mm-hmm.
It's a tool in your toolbox.
Yeah.
It's still going to be the kind of conversations that you have with people, and looking after them the right way. Like, don't trigger the BS meter on them. Like, everybody's got a BS meter. Just don't trigger it. Just be honest.
Just stay within those lines. That's awesome.
It's not that hard. Just be honest.
You're totally right. Okay, well, that's all the questions that I had for you guys. I really appreciate everybody being so willing to share and so open about kind of what's going on in their world. And if anybody has questions, feel free to, again, like I said, unmute or type in the chat box. What I'm really hearing from you all in terms of if we see our days on market increase is communicate with your sellers systematically and proactively, right? Be in front of them before they have the time to come and ask you, or educate them when you're going to be informing them. Get that price spot on, make it approachable. I love that word. Make it an approachable price that people feel comfortable kind of getting into the dialogue about it, and using data to tell the story of the price and of the market, not using emotion. I think that I kind of pulled that from what a lot of you were saying. And I think that's so important for our other agents to hear too, that it's about the information, and it's not coming from you. It's not coming from those buyers. It's coming from the market, and using that data.
And a really quick tip, if it's really kind of going on and nothing's happening, just change out your lead-in picture.
Oh, love that.
So on MLS, if you've got one picture that's been up there for a long time, go in and change the order and put another one up, and you will see a little spike in the number of people that will take a look at it. And they'll go, oh, I never noticed this picture last time, blah, blah, blah. Like, it's amazing how many people just leave the same lead-in picture. The first picture that's going to come up on realtor.ca will be the same picture all the time. If your listing is getting stale because you haven't priced it right, or the market fell out from underneath you and you didn't keep up, then just change your lead-in picture.
My personal favorite is the picture of the houses that still have snow in the photos.
Yeah.
So it's a good look.
Yeah. It's like, nothing spells. It needs a big stamp on it. This is a stale listing.
Yeah, really.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. So I don't have any questions in the chat box. I want to thank you all again so much for your time. You're sharing your knowledge, your wisdom, your experience with everybody. And we got a little bit.